When Philippe, the younger brother of King Louis XIV, got married to the younger sister of England's Charles II, French court was immediately captivated by this beautiful and talented princess. In our last video, we looked at the beginning of the scandal between Henrietta of England, or Henriette d'Angleterre, and her brother-in-law, Louis XIV. This was in 1661, shortly after Henriette's wedding. Today we will continue with the story, and see what happened as a fallout of this scandal. Soon after Henriette's marriage, King Louis made her serve as the hostess of all major court events, in place of the Queen, Marie-Thérèse. It was clear to everyone that Louis XIV was deeply infatuated with his sister-in-law, and soon, rumor that King Louis is having an affair with Henriette was swirling around French court. Queen Mother Anne of Austria was in a fit of rage, especially when her daughter-in-law and niece, Queen Marie-Thérèse, came to her sobbing. Anne also had to deal with Philippe, who was enraged by the rumors of an affair between his wife and his brother, and wanted to confront them. But Queen Anne, by this time a seasoned veteran in the court affairs, handled the situation with an expert touch. First, she reassured Marie-Thérèse that the rumors were baseless. "You already know how deeply pious Louis is. He wouldn't commit such a sin with his own sister-in-law." The naive Marie-Thérèse believed Queen Anne and calmed down. Once she managed to convince Marie-Thérèse, Queen Anne quietly summoned Marie-Thérèse's maids. She gave them detailed instructions on how to talk to Marie-Thérèse about this matter. Of course, she did not forget to give each of the maids a stern warning that, should Marie-Thérèse hear about any more gossip about this, it will cost them their lives. The terrified maids quickly swore the secrecy. And from that day on, the maids made sure that Marie-Thérèse remained oblivious to any rumors about the king's affairs. Next, Anne dealt with Philippe. She scolded him, and blamed his neglect for Henriette's involvement with Louis. She then advised Philippe on how to win Henriette back. "Make sure you keep her pregnant. When she has a baby, make sure you get her pregnant again as soon as she recovers. Louis will not want to continue his affair with a woman who is pregnant or is recovering." Obedient Philippe resolved to follow his mother's advice. He distanced himself from his lover for a while, and focused on Henriette. Henriette found Philippe's sudden attention to her somewhat bewildering, but there was no excuse to refuse him, either. And soon enough, Henriette became pregnant. Queen Mother Anne then summoned both King Louis and Henriette. She demanded to know if they had indeed crossed the line, and both vehemently denied it. Queen Anne then gave the two a dire warning. "If such a thing were to ever happen, you two are as good as killing me with your hands." She wanted to make sure that both Louis and Henriette understood the gravity of the situation. And they understood. Louis was a smart person. He understood that he needed to get a handle on the situation, despite being deeply infatuated with Henriette. Henriette was also an astute and perceptive person, so she noticed Louis's dilemma. The smartest thing for them would have been to end any affair right there and then. But Henriette did not want to lose her status as the hostess of the court. And perhaps they were simply too infatuated with each other to do the smart thing. But, no matter how they actually felt, the situation was urgent. Henriette then came up with an idea. Louis needs to take a mistress. Right now, the court's attention was entirely focused on the two of them, and they need to divert that attention. They could act as if Louis has another lover, not Henriette, but one of her ladies-in-waiting. That way, people would think that Louis had been spending all this time with Henriette, not because he was having an affair with Henriette herself, but to see one of her ladies-in-waiting. Louis was struck by the brilliance of this plan. If he played his part well, they could deceive everyone. They set about to implement this plan right away. To deceive the sharp eyes of the French courtiers, the details mattered. The maid had to be attractive enough to be believable. But Henriette made sure they are not Louis's type. So she carefully selected maids who were pretty, but had some other imperfections. Then, when Louis and Henriette would meet, Henriette had her ladies-in-waiting accompany her one at a time, so that Louis could see them. Louis showed no particular interest in any of them, but nonetheless selected a girl named Françoise Louise de la Blome-le-Blanc at the time. She would later be called Louise de la Valliere. Louis's choice was satisfactory with Henriette as well. This girl, Louise, was exactly who she had in mind for the role. Having spent much time with Louis at parties and balls, Henriette knew exactly the type of woman he was attracted to. Just by observing where his eyes wandered, she could tell Louis liked well-proportioned women. He preferred lively and witty women over quiet and demure ones. Basically, Louis liked women like Henriette herself. Knowing this, Henriette selected the opposite type of candidates. And Louise was nothing like Henriette herself. She was beautiful, but almost too thin, and her figure was somewhat lacking. She had had polio as a child, which left one leg shorter than the other, requiring her to wear shoes with different heel heights. She was also naturally quiet and serene, and devoutly religious, qualities that made her unlikely to try to seduce the king. In short, she was a trustworthy maid. When Louis chose Louise, Henriette discreetly spoke to her. She instructed her on what to do. "From now on, whenever I go to see the king, you'll come with me. You will spend some time alone with him." Louise was shocked and anxious, asking what she was supposed to do alone with the king. Henriette found this reassuring and calmed her down, explaining that she only needed to be a companion for the king, engaging in simple conversations. Though slightly relieved, Louise remained very worried. When the day came, Henriette made sure people saw her entourage going in to meet King Louis. Louise was then left alone in the king's room, while Henriette was creating alibis outside. Louise was nervous at first, but she soon found herself surprisingly calm. Louis was very courteous, making her feel at ease. Initially, they talked about her family and childhood. Their meetings continued this way, with Henriette making sure people saw her outside, after they see her entering the king's quarters. This left the courtiers entirely confused, wondering whether Madame or the maid was the king's real lover. The plan was quite successful, and Louis and Henriette continued their secret rendezvous. As the autumn approached, the situation began to change. Soon, Henriette's belly started to show signs of pregnancy, and Louise's behavior became a bit odd. What used to be a friendship with a sense of camaraderie and open conversations turned into something more distant. Louise started avoiding eye contact and seemed uncomfortable around Henriette. Henriette had a bad feeling about this. Could it be? Louis seemed to be avoiding her too. In the past, when they sat together at events, they would exchange signals for their next rendezvous. But now, Louis was not giving her any signal. Henriette realized that what she never imagined was actually happening. Louis had fallen for Louise. And Henriette realized her mistake, but it was too late. She was overconfident. Leaving an attractive young man and a beautiful woman alone with each other for an extended time would inevitably lead to something more if they had the slightest attraction for each other. Louis's usual preferences didn't matter. People have their unique charms, and, once the spark ignites, even the shortcomings can look refreshing and attractive. In fact, Henriette should have known this from the beginning. After all, Louis himself chose Louise. For whatever reason, he chose Louise over the other maids. If Henriette had been wiser, she wouldn't have brought Louise along, perhaps finding an excuse to bring someone else. But she was too confident of his attraction for herself. How did Louise feel? Initially, she was terrified, dreading the time she had to spend alone with the king. But after their first conversation, she was deeply impressed by him. Young Louis could indeed be quite charming when he wants to be. After that first meeting, Louise is said to have confided in a friend, if only he weren't the king. She began to enjoy her conversations with Louis, and being an inexperienced girl she was, Louis would have quickly noticed her genuine admiration for him. Louis, on his part, discovered a completely different charm in Louise, something he hadn't found in the women he liked before. She wasn't lively or sociable, but had a shy charm that was incredibly endearing. Before he knew it, Louis was in love with Louise. However, Louise made it very difficult for him. She clearly had feelings for him, but firmly refused to become his lover, insisting that she could not betray the Queen or Madame Henriette. And this refusal must have made Louis want her all the more. Louis, after all, had fallen for a girl who would not easily yield to his advances before. And this time, there was no Cardinal Mazarin to stop him. And Louis was not going to simply give up the girl he set his heart on. Louis had to put in a tremendous effort to win her over, but his persistence paid off, and eventually, Louise became his lover. By the time they actually became lovers, people at court had long been assuming they were. That was, after all, the plan Henriette concocted from the beginning. But Henriette had been outsmarted by her own scheme, and now, there was nothing she could do. Once Louis's feelings changed, that was it for her. The sudden sense of loss was overwhelming for Henriette. In the spring of 1662, Henriette gave birth to a daughter named Marie-Louise. We had seen more about Marie-Louise's life in other videos, but anyways. Philippe was a famously doting father, cherishing Marie-Louise from infancy. Even in his portraits, he would include an image of his daughter. But at the time, there was much speculation about Marie-Louise's paternity. This was because Henriette's pregnancy coincided with the period when she was rumored to be Louis's lover, and of course, this was also the same time period when Philippe was diligently trying to get her pregnant, following Queen Mother Anne's advice. Some speculated another man might be Marie-Louise's father, Armand de Gramont, the Count of Guiche. Numerous contemporary writers commented on how handsome he was. Along with his stunning looks and masculine charm, the Count was also a notorious philanderer. He was also rumored to be bisexual, and Philippe's lover. He often stayed in Philippe's household, and reportedly had an affair with Henriette as well. If Henriette indeed had an affair with Count de Guiche, it was likely due to her disappointment over losing Louis's attention, unhappiness with her marriage, and fleeting allure of this Casanova's skills in the art of seduction, which came to her in her vulnerable state. From what happened next, it doesn't appear that Henriette had a genuine love for Count de Guiche, as we will see in the future episodes. This Count de Guiche had a peculiar taste. He enjoyed the sense of achievement from seducing a woman of high status that he cannot normally be associated with. And Henriette was a prime target, second in rank at court, and the king's alleged lover. Using his access to Philippe's household, he eventually succeeded in winning her over. But these type of men, who sees women as a target of conquest, often lose interest in his target once he achieves the goal of conquering her, and this was also the case for Guiche with Henriette. Their fling was short-lived, and soon he set his sights on a new target, Louis's new mistress, Louise de la Valliere. Pursuing Louise was typical of the Count's pursuit of unattainable women. By this time, Louis and Louise's relationship became an open fact. Louis no longer tried to hide their relationship. Instead, Louis made Louise the king's official mistress. Louise was a beautiful girl to begin with, and now with all of the people attending to her as Louis's official mistress, she had blossomed into a captivating woman, even learned to manage her slight limp well enough to dance at balls. The Count relentlessly pursued her at these events, using every charm and tactic in his arsenal. Yet, Louise proved to be an impenetrable fortress, rejecting his advances entirely. This was a rare defeat for the Count. However, this rejection only fueled his determination. Realizing that trying to directly approach Louise wouldn't work, he turned to Henriette. Louise becoming the king's official mistress meant she would now take center stage at royal events, a position Henriette had previously occupied. Henriette was now completely sidelined. She was feeling hurt over losing Louis's affection, and with that, the French court's center stage. The Count exploited her vulnerable state to approach her again. He reignited their affair, and began to instill jealousy and hatred towards Louise in Henriette's heart. Initially, Henriette had only felt regrets over her own mistake in getting Louis and Louise together. But now she began to see Louise as a backstabber and opportunist, who used her generosity in taking her as a lady-in-waiting to get close to Louis. and with the Count's persistent persuasion, Henriette's feelings turned into a burning desire for revenge. Together, they concocted a scheme to oust Louise from her position as the king's favorite. What will they do, and will their scheme succeed? We will look at what happened next, in the next video. So please like and subscribe to continue receiving the stories from history. It really helps a small channel like us.